Hello IC fans, welcome back to part 2 of my preparation videos for getting the speedrun Rlaarlo speedrunner car out. Now if you watched the first video, it was a bit of a mission, but we changed or checked the diffs front and rear just to make sure there was enough lubricant, i.e. diff grease. In my opinion there wasn't. I didn't open up the ball diff, or whatever, I think it's a ball diff, might be a gear diff, but I didn't open that up because to me it felt okay. It still feels okay when I do this, because that's the diff working, front and rear, but when you do that it feels a bit more tighter because of the grease with the planet wheel, pinion, spur gear of the diff. So I'm happy with that now. It's got enough in it. So this part of the video was simply because the shocks are quite nice on this. However, I don't know whether or not could be set better. Now the reason I say that, if I just move this out of the way, I'm not sure whether you can see that up there, but the back feels good. Now, I know, and I've said this in the previous video, that to get the speed out of the car, like if you're going for like the highest speed possible, which I'm not, you take things off, like you probably take this spare wheel off, and you probably wouldn't worry about the lights or anything like that, but the back actually feels pretty good. It sits where it should. The front, however, does sit a bit high. Now, we're not talking like, in my experience anyway, from RC stuff, from what I do, being able to get over 100 miles an hour is able in this. It's probably capable. It's whether or not, one, can I do that? Two, have I got the space to do that? But what I'm saying is I think the front's a little bit too high. If I move the car a little bit, can you see that? I think I want the front down a little bit here. So it's nice and soft on the back, but the front is just, it pings up. Now I'm aware when you've got the shell on and the air going over it, it's going to push that down ever so slightly. And in most cases, if you've got a car, from experience, small amount of knowledge, you want the car raked forward anyway, rather than back. It's just a thing that I think. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm glad in some ways. I might not even do anything with the back because I'm quite happy with that. We can change the platforms if you want to sort of stiffen it a little bit, but these platforms are fully up, which means the springs are not even at their full tension and it's still pushing up. So I think these front shocks are going to have to want thicker oil in there so that the spring is less likely to overcome the oil. That's my theory, because at the end of the day, the damping on the shock absorber, it depends on you can put lighter springs on, of course, but I think if we take one of these off, we're going to put some thick, I don't know what I'm going to put in here. I have got a various variety of oils. I have to go and dig those out. I might not even go Tamiya oil actually, because I might go slightly thicker. I've got my race oils, which I use for my 112 carpet racer. Might use some of that in there, but I'm not sure which one yet. I think I've even got like 10,000 weight. I think might be a bit too much, but anyway, I think the best thing to do is we'll take one of these shocks off, and I'll perhaps show you. I mean, it shouldn't be too difficult. It's not going to be like the diffs, is it? So we'll get this one off, or it doesn't really matter. One of these off, and and we'll assess what it's like. So just bear with me while I set myself up as my tools fall down, and then I'll be right back. So nice and easy to get these off. This is the front shock. It's not stiff, but it's quite a lot of recoil. Clearly there's more weight on the back So what I'm trying to do is when you push down on the front is eliminate the spring back. So the best thing to do is we're going to take this apart. It looks like a standard shock. Hopefully, if it's anything like most Chinese stuff, I don't know. It's sometimes always a bit more overcomplicated to what it is. And then we're going to change. We're going to just sort of empty the oil out, and we're going to put some thicker oil in. Incidentally, there's settings which I will show you when I'm reinstalling this shock of the angle and where you can place it on the car. So I could make the front shock absorbers. I think I was talking in a previous video where you, rather than have them more upright, you have them canted over, more of a rake. That in itself, the more rake you put in will soften the spring without actually changing the spring. So it could have been a simple case of put them in a different position on the car, and it may well have counteracted the springiness, the sort of the recoil, or what we call rebound of a shock absorber. So I think along with the thicker oil and a slightly different position when we put it back on, I think that might work. So I'm gonna just take this apart, and then I'll be back. I'll show you the oil I'm gonna put in, and hopefully we should see a difference. Well, you might not see it on the camera, you see, but I can tell you by feeling that now, the spring is definitely overcoming the oil. Definitely, it's sort of ping. I can feel the pressure coming back up. So, right, let me just take this apart. I took the shock off. That wasn't as easy as it should have been. Like most things, it's stupidly tight for what it was. So it's a typical shock absorber layout with a bladder on the top. That was really tight. I've actually had to sort of scored something up to get it off, and I was doing my best not to score it. Now the oil inside, this is the current oil that was in there. It's a 4-hole piston. It looks like standard, like many other clean, but normal sort of shock oil, which you can probably see there if I show you. Possibly could do a little bit more in there, but we're going to take that out now, tip it into this plate. It doesn't really matter that we mix and match the oils, to be fair. I don't know what the viscosity is of that oil, but it is what it is. The bladder I will just wipe down. It doesn't really matter about that. I keep showing the screen, not the camera. So I think I'll leave that as it is. I'm just going to wipe this one down so it's not all leaking everywhere, and I'll show you what I've got in my oil bag. So you can clearly see there the 4 holes. I'm guessing you can buy different ones of these. But you can also see where I've had to score it trying to get it undone. That was really tight. Like most Chinese knockoff. Well, I say Chinese knockoff. It's not, is it? It's just Chinese. It's just Chinese, isn't it? It's not much else you can say about it. Now I've got a bag here which you might not see because the camera's at a funny angle, but it's just a bag. I store all my oils when I go racing. I say racing when I turn up. So looking at into here, I've got like 550, 15,000, 30,000. I think that's gonna be overkill. 120,000 super glue. Don't put that in there. And 12,000. So I think what I might do, we're going to go with the 500, the 550. God, covered in oil now. Silicone oil. It's madness. It goes everywhere. When I say oil stand, it's just a car stand, but it's got the holes in it for the shocks to go in, and they could just sit like that to allow the bubbles to come up. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's put this oil in there. Now the piston's all the way down at the moment. So I haven't filled it all the way up. I'll try and show you what I've done. So that's going to definitely want some more in there, so I'm going to do that now. It does make a bit of a mess, to be honest, but hope you can see that. So that's, I'm just going to move this up and down a minute. Yeah, the problem is you can see all the bubbles coming up. I think the best thing to do now is just to let me just, I'm going to do it once more. Because the piston just goes proud of the top. So I'm going to put that back in there. It's almost like watching paint dry, isn't it? So I'm not going to film me watching the bubbles, watching you, watching me. I suppose I should take the other shock absorber off, take it out, and then do the same what I've done here, and I'll be back when they're both kind of settled, I guess. And you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but I can see into the shock, and the bubbles are disappearing so quite rapidly. So I'm going to do the other shock, take it apart, get to this stage, and then we'll go from there, really. So while the oil's sort of settling in the shocks, I thought I'd show you the settings on the car. So first we go with the top shock brace. Now it's got there's a little like spacer which I will take off. You'll see that the top there, the bolt, is in the middle. There's 3 holes there. Can you see that? And it was in the middle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this bolt to the innermost. And on the bottom, that's where the shock would mount. It was mounted on the middle, so it's very much neutral. And the hole nearest the wheel, so as you look at the camera on the left, I'm going to refit the shock on the left. So it's as much canter or angle I can get on the shocks as possible, because it's going to soften them up. Hopefully not too soft, but that's the plan. The shocks are clearing quite nicely. You can see there, I can't see any bubbles in that one. And that's I've done that one last. And that one's all right now. So yeah, I think let's reassemble those, and then we'll put it back on the car, and then we'll put it back on the deck and just see what it's like. So I'll quickly show the shocks are rebuilt. The thing is, you can't feel, it's not feel-o-vision, is it? Or smell-o-vision. You can't smell anything unless it's me farting. But when I took these shocks off standard, when you squeeze them down, yes, they are springing back, but there's some dampening there now. Whereas before you could feel that the spring was springing up, and it's almost like the shock wasn't doing its job. But you can feel in my hand now, there's a bit more oof. It's still springing out, of course, it's got to, but there's a bit more resistance with the spring coming up. So that seems like a step in the right direction. I'm going to stick it back on the car now. Fingers crossed, it should be better. And that's it all back together. Right, so I've done a couple of things here that I did off camera that I wasn't talking about initially. So first off, the shocks do feel dampened. There's more weight on the back. That's why the back's a bit more squat. It might be a little bit too soft, but it's fine. The front does have more dampening. I quite like that. It feels better. It feels a bit more controlled. The last time I did that with the car, it sprung back up. Yes, it is doing that now, but you got to believe me, when you push it down and let it go, you can kind of sense that back up again. So it's probably still not perfect. I suppose it could do with maybe slightly softer springs, because it's the weight in the car doesn't push the spring down as much, and I can't adjust the shocks anymore. But what I did do, which I'm going to move the camera to show you, I don't know if you can see, it's really difficult, but on the bottom wishbone, there are some droop screws. They're kind of right in the middle. Now, droop screws, you can screw those down and it doesn't give the car as much droop. So effectively lowers the ride height. You do need droop. Things like Formula 1 cars, Grand Prix cars, or any single seater, I suppose, at that sort of level, Indy car. As soon as you jack the front of the car up, the wheel comes off the ground, which means they hardly run any droop at all, if any. More flex, I would guess. On a road car, if you've ever changed your tyres or you've got a puncture and you took your wheel off or whatever, when you jack your car up, the car jacks up for quite a bit before the wheel comes off the ground. So road cars run, I wouldn't say run, have a lot of droop. It's just the way it is. The back of this car, you can see that's the droop. So when you lift the back up, it lifts and then it lifts the back off the ground. Now I haven't changed the droop screws on the back at the moment. I'm going to leave those as they are. The front is lower, but there's but if any, there's a tiny bit of droop, but not much at all. Looking down the side of the car now, you can see front to rear, as far as I'm happy with, that's fairly level, and it wasn't like that initially. So that, coupled with the shocks and the droop screws at the front, it lowers the front a little bit. So I think that's going to be a little bit more stable. The rear shocks I'm going to leave as they are, and I've done all I can at the moment with what I've got with the front shock. So that will be the end of part 2 of my preparation for my speed run. Part 3 will go over the car casters and cambers. I've got the tools for that to make sure that everything's where it should be, front and rear, track, toe in, caster, camber. I think the track is what it is, isn't it? It's as wide as what it can be, unless I get shims, which I haven't got at the moment. I think also looking at that corner there, when I move that wheel, there's a plate. It's just a case of that screw is loose. So I'll go over all these bits and pieces. The anti-roll bars can be also adjusted. So I think I might just stiffen the front one up a little bit. I think the back is as loose as it can go. When you slide the sliders sort of, where are they on this one? Yeah, sort of forwards underneath the top wishbone. You can't really see that, but you slide them forward, it stiffens the anti-roll bar up. So that's the other thing I'll do with the setup process. Yeah, so part 3 is going to be that. I've actually got scales as well, so why not? Let's go the full hog. We'll put it on scales. We do there is some caster adjustment there. Camber. We'll go over the ride height so we can adjust the platforms on each shock and get the ride height relatively level, maybe a little bit higher at the back, so a very slight bit of rake, and we'll go from there. Let me know what you think. Like I said, old hat, everyone's got one, smashed it, used it, sold it, moved on, and I'm just starting mine. One thing is for sure, that when the guys that have used them, they haven't really gone through the car at all, not on camera. They might have done it off camera. And I'm not saying this will go really well. What I'm looking for is a stable car, so that when I use it and open the taps, even if it only does 35 miles an hour in its stock form, it's straight. I don't want to wreck it. I don't have loads of area around where I live which is super flat. A lot of people are using roads and things. I'm not going to go to that extent, but then, you know, I think stock gearing, stock battery and everything, it does 35 miles an hour, I think, if that. So yeah, we'll do small steps at a time, but initially I'm after stability, which I know is easier said than done. But anyway, that's the end of part 2. I'll see you soon for part 3. Please, if you like my videos, then I'd like you, if you can consider subscribing. It would really help me. And turn on your notifications and give it a thumbs up or even a thumbs down if you don't like them. Let me know. Just give me your feedback. If anything, it doesn't matter, good or bad. And I will see you soon on part 3. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.